Hi guys, sorry it's been a while. In this video, what I'm going to talk about is complex PTSD. And this is completely unscripted. I don't have any notes, so I'm going off the cuff, so forgive me if I make some mistakes. And if you're interested in coaching, go to www.coachcat.org. So I don't know if any of you have ever read the book by Pete Walker called Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving, but if you have not, I highly recommend getting that book. It talks about how when we have childhood trauma, we get exposed to, some sort of stimuli, some sort of trauma, and we develop one or two main go-tos to sort of cope with that, which is fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And it's come to my attention that fawn is the sort of codependent response. So, think of it like when you were a little kid, you were being exposed to some sort of trauma. You developed this sort of coping mechanism, and it's all, a lot of it, like I've talked about in other videos, it has to do with what's happening in your body, in your nervous system, with your brain, with your amygdala, with your, the primitive brain is getting hijacked. And essentially, like, your primitive brain is that like survival part of your brain that needs to kick in if, that saber-toothed tiger is coming after you, and it kicks in. And it is very strong and it's very powerful, and it has to be. It's like the most powerful part of the brain. It has to overrun the other parts of the brain because it needs to do that in order for you to survive. But if you have experienced a lot of trauma as a child or as an adult, what's happening is you're getting flooded with the cortisol and all the hormones, and that fight, flight, freeze, fawn response is getting almost like oversaturated or overused. And eventually, if you have sort of complex PTSD, it's like you're in that state of sort of hyper or hypo arousal a lot of the time, a lot more than you're supposed to be. And there is no saber-toothed tiger. You're just being exposed to potentially normal everyday stimuli, but you can get triggered sometimes by the stimuli. And I noticed for myself that I've gotten really clear that my two responses are fawn. My two main go-tos are fawn and flight. When I was in my alcohol addiction, I think it used to be a lot more fight, but that part is really dim. That part's really muted for me now. And it's more that, when I'm in a state of trauma, I want to save the world. I want to fix people. It's all externally focused. Like I have this overabundance of empathy where I'm trying to fix others or help them or save them instead of focusing on myself and doing the self-care that I need to do to be well. And then also I notice if I'm in a state of trauma that my boundaries become more porous and more malleable. And like when I'm in a better state, when I'm not in that state of trauma, I'm able to, establish my boundaries, state my boundaries, communicate my boundaries, have consequence if my boundaries are violated, and sort of adhere to those consequences. Like I'm able to do that in a much more effective way when I'm not in a state of trauma. But when I'm triggered and I'm in an emotional flashback, all of a sudden my boundaries get porous. I get confused. I don't know. I don't hold true to myself. I have a hard time figuring out what's best for me and establishing and setting those boundaries. So I know this about myself. I also know that I'll go into this mode of like trying to fix others, and coincidentally, I mentioned this before, like this video is an example of sort of probably a codependent response, because like I want to help you guys to not go through this or to get some healing and some wellness so that you can be well. So that's, a little bit of my codependent response, perhaps working in its highest good. And then the other thing is the flight. For me, there's the flight. And that is where as soon as I get triggered, that thing in me that is like run, like kicks in, and I get, I'm trying to like run away from whatever the stimuli is. And I also notice this in being overly busy, being overly committed. I'm constantly like running to, I go to the mountains a lot, I go climbing a lot, I go camping a lot. I'm always outside. I'm always doing stuff. Like I never have like, or very rarely had that time where I'm like calming down and I'm doing like, being I do spend a lot of time alone, but it's like doing stuff, right? And so like also just like doing nothing, like the whole idea of like it's okay to like do nothing and like relax and just be well or be with yourself, like that can be challenging for me. And so I'm, especially when I'm in a state of hypervigilance or hyper arousal. And then other people might have more of the freeze response where they shut down, they become foggy brain, they can't make decisions, they lack motivation, they don't know what decision to make, they get into that state of sort of paralysis. So that could be true for somebody who is manifesting more of the sort of freeze response, right? And if there's conflict, they may stay in the middle of the conflict, not know how to get away and just stay there and shut down. Or if it's somebody who's manifesting more of the fight response, they may be, you know, sort of externalizing their anger and like getting mad at things or having road rage or, you know, taking out their aggression on other people or on self, you know, sort of self-mastication where they're being, you know, a lot of beating themselves up like, you idiot, I can't believe you did that, or, you know, sort of this internal monologue of fight and like really being sort of almost self-abusive or other abusive. So, you know, these 4 responses are, you know, on one level, they were designed to keep us alive as human beings, right? There are survival instincts, but you can think of it like if you've had a lot of trauma, your survival instincts have gone awry. Your system is sort of malfunctioning. So it's our job to now live in a much more conscious way where we are aware in the moment of, oh, wow, I'm being triggered. And it's really hard to be aware of this in the moment because all you know is that you're in this emotional flashback, your brain is perseverating, you're over intellectualizing, or you're over analyzing, or you are you know, running away from potentially, you know, environments that could actually be safe, but for whatever reason you are triggered and you feel unsafe. So you're running and you're overly busy, or you're shutting down. You can't get off the couch. You can't motivate. Like all of these things could be happening. And so when that's happening, it's really important that you're able to recognize, oh, right now I'm in a trigger. I'm being triggered. I am having an emotional flashback. And if you can somehow come into awareness that that's what's happening, you know, on a really simple, basic level, if you can take 10 deep, really rich breaths in, like in through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, out through your mouth, you know, really rich breaths in. Often when I breathe in, I think of I'll breathe in God and I breathe out anxiety, or I'll breathe in love and I'll bring out fear. And so trying to bring in love and get rid of the fear. And I know that this is a very difficult thing to do when you're in that state of trigger. And also recognize, like, if you are in one of these relationships, you are going to most likely have some symptoms of complex PTSD. If you are in a relationship with an emotional manipulator, it's almost, you know, textbook. So it's normal that you have this complex PTSD. It's normal that you have these feelings. This is basically your body and brain have been hijacked, but learning how to manage them, I think, is really, really key. So if you get the chance, I know this is a short video, but read the book by Pete Walker, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. I listened to that like for a couple hours last night. It was really helpful for me, and I really encourage you to tap into that resource. So thank you so much and have a good day. Bye-bye.